Hey, what's going on, fellow commanders? It's Muse. So today I would like to have a discussion about quote unquote, I'm doing the air quotes, shadow nerfs. Not just shadow nerfs, but there's other things you hear people say all the time. How did I not hit that shot? How did I get penned from that angle? How did I hit this? How did I that? We're gonna go over a lot of that stuff. I want to break it down and I want to talk about what can contribute to some of the things people think is just wargaming messing with them. And let's go ahead and we're going to get into it. So, we're going to talk about one of my favorite commanders to start off, and that's going to be Beepley. Just to show you it's Beepley, we're going to take a look under the guys. And there we go. Shelly Beepley, one of my favorite commanders in the game. I love American cruisers. That is my forte, and this is one of my favorite commanders for American cruisers. So, what we have here, one of the things you hear, as far as the Shadow Nerf realm, is about dispersion, and why is my dispersion trash one shot, and then, I come back 2 weeks later and I'm hitting lasers. It depends on what you're firing at and who you're firing at. So, for starters, there's what they call anti-dispersion builds. I was one of probably the first people to use that term in the community. When I first said it, people looked at me like I was crazy. What the hell is an anti-dispersion build? Anti-dispersion build is this. What does that stat say? Incoming firing dispersion, plus 4.5%. So, just like when you look at a battleship commander, let's go over here to Sims real quick. What does this perk say? Main battery dispersion, minus 7%. Okay. Okay. So, if you have it maxed out, it's 10%. And then if you add Scharnhorst, you get like another 4 or 5%. So you can get around 15%, maybe a little more if there's another commander that has better dispersion. So coming back over here, we're taking 4.5% off of your build. Automatically. And then, there's inspirations that you can run. Like, for example, Mr. Vion. So that was 4.5%. Vion at max is a plus 4%. So that's 8.5% now. Then we have other commanders that we could use as inspirations, like Mitsuzuma. And that's going to be another plus 2. So 8.5 plus 2, we're at 10.5%. So even though you've decreased your dispersion by 15%, we've negated 10.5% of that. So we've almost made your build nullified. You're getting 4.5% at best added dispersion. Now, the thing with dispersion is range matters. When you're firing at something at 5 kilometers, dispersion is not going to matter as much as 10 kilometers and definitely not as much as 15 kilometers. And the further each kilometer out you go, it's going to exponentially matter what that dispersion is. And so if I'm doing the thing that annoys particular BB mains that, don't really know how to play the game, which is kiting, because they cry about, anybody that kites and what an annoying playstyle it is, and, you must suck to kite. If I'm kiting you at 15 kilometers and I have an anti-dispersion build on my ship, you don't have a very good chance of hitting me. And especially if I'm doing something like rudder builds, I'm running an agile ship, you're probably not going to hit me. And the thing with kiting is, so let's address that real quick. I'm probably going to do a whole separate video on kiting, so I just want to touch base on it real quick. to put down Beetlejuice because Beetlejuice absolutely hates the kiting style. He hates kiting. Kiting serves a purpose. So, like many games, you have two kinds of tanking in this game. There's two ways you can gain potential damage. One would be with your armor, your resistances, to just eat the damage and negate it. And that's going to get you potential damage. And the second way, you know, in D&D, that would be your warriors and your paladins and your people with heavy armor and high resists. And then on the other side of that, in something like Dungeons and Dragons, you have a different kind of tanking, which is shadow tanking or dodging dexterity. And that's what kiting is. If somebody fires a full salvo at you and you completely dodge it, you're still going to get potential damage the same way a battleship would get for eating that damage. Because it's potential damage. So keep that in mind, potential damage. So, if people are firing at you and throwing all this potential damage your way, guess what they're not doing? They're not hitting your teammates. So you are tanking. Whether Beetlejuice likes that or not, it is a form of tanking in this game. And not only does it do that, it also, when they fire at you, they are getting themselves spotted. Kiting is also a way to pull somebody out of position, to make them vulnerable to your teammates, to destroy them. So kiting serves many purposes in this game. Many purposes. You know, as a DD, you can flash your guns real quick to make somebody come a certain way and draw them right into torpedoes. Kiting serves many purposes in this game, and I don't care if Beetlejuice doesn't like it, that's because he sucks at the game. That it is what it is. You know, I don't know what to tell people. Like, if you're a battleship main and you're annoyed by people that kite, I would suggest playing some kitey agile cruisers and learning how to kite yourself to learn how to negate that, to learn when not to chase a ship, to learn, you know, how not to rely on the auto aim. Like, I can tell when somebody's a good player just by when they fire at me. Did they use the auto aim or did they manually adjust their aim to try and predict where I was going to go? And there's a big difference between those two players in skill level. And I guarantee you Beetlejuice is one of the ones that just follows his auto aim and just adds lead to the auto aim and thinks that makes him a god. Well, it doesn't. You need to, you know, when you're dealing with a kiting cruiser, you need to predict what they're going to do. So with kiting, like what I'll do is, you know, I'll go flat broadside to you at 15 kilometers. I'll let you see my broadside. And the moment I see the flash come out of your guns, I'm going to turn vertical and just dodge those. And it is what it is. And if you don't adjust for that, if you rely on the auto aim and just add some lead to it, you're not going to hit me. Your shells are going to go way wide of me. And so it's a very viable playstyle. And then when you add an anti-dispersion build to a kiting playstyle, like people might as well not even shoot at you. Something like a Suzuya with anti-dispersion and a rudder build at 15 kilometers, if you shoot at that, you're out of your mind. You're not going to hit it. You know, and is it possible to get a dev strike on something like that? Yeah, if you're a very advanced player and you understand kiting and you understand, okay, here's what the person's doing and here's what they're going to do. This is what they're predicting from me. So here's what they're going to do. And it's chess. You got to outthink them, and you can't go off what the auto aim is telling you because that's not where that ship is going to be when you fire. And that's kiting, and that's anti-dispersion builds. And the anti-dispersion at 15 kilometers is going to really, really open up your salvo. And so if you're firing lasers all the time, you're not going to get lasers on a ship that has an anti-dispersion build. If you're used to firing lasers, you know, and you have somebody with a double rudder build at 15 kilometers, it's going to make you think your guns are crap because you're going to miss by miles. You know, something like a Charles Martel with a double rudder build. A Beepley perk, or not Beepley, I'm sorry, Baltimore. That's a lot of decreased rudder shift. and that thing can turn on a dime. And so at 15 kilometers, they're already fast. Now they're agile and they can turn pretty quick. They're going to watch for the flash from your guns, and in the moment you fire, they're going to be somewhere completely different. And they're baiting you to fire. And so that's, like, there's so many things I think battleship mains need to get themselves into cruisers to understand. To understand, put yourself in an HE spammer and understand what an HE spammer needs you to do in order to be able to burn you down. And that'll teach you as a battleship main not to do that thing. Everyone cries about the fire, but don't DC with one fire. Don't push into an HE spammer. There's things you can do to avoid that. Put fight fire with fire on. There's things you can do to not get burnt down like that, and yet people do it and then cry about it. There's things you can do to deal with a kiting cruiser that people don't do. They go chase a kiting cruiser and then wonder why they ate a shitload of torps or why they got blasted from their broadside. Don't do it. It's that simple. But anyway, back to the conspiracy theories here. So another one I hear people go off about is, how did I get penned from that angle? How did they pen me? You thought you were in a good position to tank and you still got penned. Well, each of these nations has different pen angles. So notoriously the worst is Germany. Absolutely atrocious pen angles. And it's not just pen angle, it is the amount of penetration, the angle of the guns they're firing at. So there's a number of things that goes into whether something's going to pen or not. There's a whole big equation going on. So something like the Russians or the Italians have very low firing angles, which gives them a lot of pen compared to the Americans, who have very high fire angles. So naturally, they have a lot more penetration value. But if you take the Americans, they have the best pen angles in the game. So if you take Americans and you add pen to them, and then you add something like, let's say, I don't know, Von Essen. Ooh, plus 4% to the pen angle. So if you already have sick pen angles and you're adding another 4% to it, or I'm sorry, 4 degrees, there's almost no way somebody is going to be able to tank you. Like, you are better off at that point in that American ship firing at angled things than you are at something flat. Because something flat, you're probably going to overpen it. Something angled, you're going to go right through. And there's almost no way to tank that. I believe 60 degrees is like the auto bounce angle. So if you have like 50, 55 degrees and then add another 4 degrees to it, that almost makes it to where there is no angle you can tank from, right? So how did they pen me from that angle? That's how. That's how. You use a ship that has good pen angles and you add pen angle to it. And then you add pen. And it doesn't matter that you're angled. It doesn't matter anymore. It completely negates your trying to tank that way. And the best way to deal with that is either out DPM them, and if you can't out DPM them, disengage and wait till you have a numerical advantage to take on that ship. That simple. It's chess, not checkers. So, that's another conspiracy theory of, how did they pen me from that angle, and how did they do this, and how did they do that? Like, it's not conspiracies. It's not shadow nerfs. It's people's builds. And what people need to understand is there's a lot of different people in this game running different builds, running different ships, running different mods. Not every time you see a ship is it going to be the same as the last 10 you saw. Does that mean, I hear a lot of stereotypical assumptions about certain kinds of ships. Like, people see an IJNDD and they're like, oh yeah, they're just going to piss off, go to the flank and torp, and not do any spotting, not do any, not go after DDs. 9 times out of 10, that's true. But I also know people that put gun builds on Shimas. And the thing is, when you make that assumption, when you just go into a game and you see a certain type of ship, and you're just like, oh, this is what they're doing, That's when you get caught out by the people who are coming up with their own little niche builds, or, they're using something different from the meta. Those people running Shima gunboat builds, do you know how many DDs they catch off guard? Because they're used to engaging Shimas with tort builds, with just garbage guns. And so they think it's just, oh, it's just another Shima, I'm just going to go gun it down. And then they get beat up and they're like, wait, what just happened? Well, you know, that's what it is. And there's a lot of different builds in this game, and there's some more advanced kind of builds, which I'm not going to get into. Those are builds that some of the people I know that are really good at the game, it's kind of like their little secrets, and I don't want to give those away. So I'm not going to get into those builds. Those are things where, if you get deep enough into this game, eventually you'll figure them out, or you'll find them out on your own. But there's some really nasty builds out there that can do some pretty incredible things, and then people are like, how the hell did they do that? It's not a shadow nerf, it's not wargaming messing with somebody, it's people understanding this game and understanding math and understanding how to put something together to do what they needed to do. They understand, okay, this ship is already good at this. If I put this build on it and I add these inspirations, this will be the result. And this is what I can do with this ship. And then they take it into a battle, and they don't try to use it outside of what it's going to be good at. They use it exactly for what it's going to be good at. And that's how you get people coming down with, shadow nerf conspiracies. And, the builds I run the most, just going to kind of wrap it up on this. So the builds I like to run the most are radar builds. Stealth radar to be exact. And you'd be surprised how many DDs get caught off guard by a stealth radar build. They're just, they go 10 games without seeing one. And then they run into yours and they just get caught out there. And they're not expecting it. And yeah, with this Beeply build, I can get it down to where by the time you see me, you are in my radar. It's a wrap. It's done. You're inside my radar. Like a little spider web. Flies to the honey. You're following your RF, and the next thing you know, you're lit up on radar, and you got my whole team shooting at you. And to me, that's one of my favorite things in this game is DD hunting with stealth radars. Kiting, like I said, I'm probably going to do a completely another video on kiting and really, really get into how to kite, how to counter kiting, all that good stuff. But I really wanted to address the whole shadow nerf conspiracy thing and, address the fact that every ship you come across is not going to be the same. People have different builds. They have different ways they're running their ships. And for anybody that has higher level commanders or maxed commanders, you know full and well that even though a lot of these numbers look really small, 1.6 degrees, like what is that? 5%, what is that? Like they look really small. But if you don't even change your mods, you just swap commanders, it completely changes the flavor and vibes of ships. I have some of my American cruisers that I run 5, 6 different builds on, and none of those builds feel the same. Not a single one. Even though it's all these little small numbers, those ships feel completely different under all those builds. And a lot of people, I think, underestimate how impactful the commanders are on their ships. A lot of the newer players don't realize that's going to make the difference on that ship is a higher level commander with, the right inspirations, the right perks, the right build. And that's all I have for you. I appreciate you. Good hunting, fair seas, captains. I will catch you next time. Take care. Bye.